Hello, it is Thursday. I hope everyone's having a great week. I am live on TikTok and also on Facebook. I have decided not to do YouTube tonight. I don't know, I always have glitches with that, but I seem to get a better response when I post it recorded afterwards. And so this will be recorded. And if you missed it, don't worry. I am always here for your questions. Happy to answer them following. And if you have nothing nice to say, please don't say anything at all. I get the craziest comments and questions, especially on TikTok. I am here to inform you. I am not your doctor. I am not diagnosing. I am simply giving you information. I was on with a patient, a new patient, earlier this morning, and kind of prompted me to do this topic because it is something very common that we talk about. And I am tired, so you'll hear it in my voice. I've been with patients all day today, so I am sorry. You'll hear me clear my throat a few times. So tonight we're going to talk about the fat that you can't pinch. It's called the visceral fat. Have you heard of that? Like the really stubborn fat that is in that midsection, and it's thick and it is hard and stubborn. And it's the silent driver behind it, which is insulin resistance. And you guys have heard me talk about insulin resistance. If your labs say normal, but you're inflamed and you're puffy and you're stuck around that midsection and you can't lose it, that is insulin resistance. So many times it's missed, and probably your A1C is fine. Maybe even your fasting glucose is fine, but your doctor's not checking your HOMA markers, and there's a HOMA IR and a HOMA S, and these are your insulin resistant markers that are really important to check. If you have insulin resistance, and I say this all the time because I get women just banging their head against the wall, so frustrated, and they're not able to lose the weight, and they're eating right, and they're exercising their tails off, and they're doing everything right. And it doesn't matter how much you work out, it doesn't matter how well you eat, until you fix that insulin resistance, you're not going to lose the fat. And unfortunately, it's going to be the visceral fat, which is the unhealthy fat around your organs. So let's dive into what is visceral fat. Visceral fat, it lives deep in the abdomen around the organs. It's metabolically active, pumping out inflammatory signals. It raises cortisol. It makes insulin work less effectively, which means you're not as sensitive as what you need to be to insulin. So you're producing, when you eat, your body's producing too much insulin. Leptin doesn't know what to do with it, and it stores it as fat, and it's usually in your midsection. So many times people come to me and they are like, my hormones are off. And usually it's not just the hormones, and I feel like we can't even really get a good accurate number on hormones because your insulin resistance suppresses the hormone levels, and anytime that you have something suppressing the hormone levels, that number is not as accurate as what it needs to be. So I like to address things in steps. So a lot of times we work on the insulin resistance and get that under control, and then we start working on the hormones. So just remember that subcutaneous fat is the fluff under the skin. Visceral fat is the troublemaker. Why it's harder to lose. When insulin is high, your body locks fat in storage, and it blocks the fat burning lipolysis. Chronically high insulin and cortisol equals fat storage in the abdomen. That's why it's hard to lose. And then if you add poor sleep, ultra processed carbs, liquid sugars, alcohol, low muscle mass, it's all the perfect storm for that visceral fat. And remember, if you have questions along the way, I'm here to answer them. Okay, I will stop. I am kind of checking both platforms, so feel free to ask away. So let's talk about some symptoms and red flags. Midsection weight that won't budge even when calories are cut. You can be in a calorie deficit, and if you have insulin resistance, you're still not going to be budging. You might bounce around a pound or two. It's just going to frustrate the hell out of you is what it's going to do. Midsection weight that won't budge even when calories are cut. That's a calorie deficit. Afternoon crashes, intense carb cravings, hangry between meals. All these are signs. elevated blood pressure, which means that there's inflammation in the body, elevated triglycerides, uric acid that's elevated, or liver enzymes, all signs of metabolic dysfunction. Do you have acne? Are there skin tags? Skin tags, do you know this? If you have skin tags, that is a surefire symptom that you have insulin resistance. PCOS symptoms, low libido, brain fog, poor sleep. What is something natural to help manage PCOS? You have to get your insulin resistance under control. So that's where I would say add in berberine. Again, you cannot manage what you're not measuring. So let's see if you actually have insulin resistance, which you probably do. And then I would add in, probably add in at least 2 to 3 500 milligrams of berberine a day. That's usually what my patients do really well on. I love berberine. I don't know if you guys know about berberine, but it's a plant chemical, and it does quite a few things. It's an anti-inflammatory. It helps to regulate cholesterol, reduce the LDL, and it helps to manage your HDL, which is the good cholesterol, shrinks cancer cells, and it regulates glucose levels. It's phenomenal. I take it. My husband takes it. He takes it for insulin resistance. I take it for the anti-inflammatory benefits. I love it. And I don't feel, as long as you're taking it post meals, I don't feel like you're going to run into any stomach issues whatsoever. My blood sugars run under 100 consistently. Yeah, unfortunately, the blood sugars usually come back fine, even though you're insulin resistance. So that's why you get dismissed at your doctor's office, is because the doctor says everything looks fine and they don't dig any deeper, and they don't really know to look at the insulin resistant markers. They're not trained for that. Again, you need to find a functional medicine doctor, a regenerative medicine doctor that does a deep dive into blood chemistry, so you know exactly what to look for. This is a great segue into as well what labs I run, and we'll get to that in just a second. So, again, if you got acne going on, you got skin tags popping up, PCOS symptoms, low libido, brain fog, poor sleep, it's not normality, okay? It's not getting older. It's you have some insulin resistance going on. So you need to fix it. Because again, if you got insulin resistance going on, that's a constant factor in feeding cancer cells. And you guys know I am all about anti-cancer. I live every single day like I have stage 4, as I say that we all should, in that prevention mode, because we all are eradicating cancer cells daily, and it's when things get sludgy, like insulin resistance, is when those cells need attention. So we got to make sure that we're doing everything possible to ward off that insulin resistance. And it just seems as we get older, we're more prone to it. Okay? All right. So labs I run. I practice data-driven care. Okay? I am all about labs. I like labs over scans any day. My insulin resistance and visceral fat panel. I hope you have a pen. Write these down, because these are things that you can ask your doctor for. And again, if your GP is not willing to run them, contact me. Contact a functional medicine doctor that deals with blood chemistry that can do it for you. Okay, so I look at fasting glucose, fasting insulin, and it's critical. Fasting insulin is critical. And what is mind-boggling to me is that most of your GPs skip it. Your HOMA-IR, it's a calculated marker. It's your insulin times glucose. And then it has a division as well. But that is a number one insulin resistant marker that needs to be done. It needs to be calculated, because it's going to let us know exactly what we have going on. If you're holding extra belly fat and that's where the weight's going, I can pretty much guarantee you got insulin resistance. All right, I also look at your A1C, which is a 3-month average. It can miss early issues. That's why, like, if your GP does run it and insurance covers it, it might come back fine. Again, they're not running your insulin resistant markers. So you got to look at the whole entire story. Your C-peptide, which is your beta cell output over time. OGTT is another one with an insulin curve. It also has a 14-day CGM trial as well. I look at patterns. So I'm also looking at lipids that actually predict risk, triglycerides, plus your HDL, and your TG slash HDL ratio, proxy for insulin resistance. I look at your ApoB, which is a particle count, remnant cholesterol, which is total HDL minus the LDL. I also am looking at your liver. What does your ALT look like? Your AST, your GGT. All of these are liver enzymes. Just because the ALT and your AST, which is your chronic and your acute liver enzymes, those may look fine, but your GGT may be elevated. That is an insulin resistant flag. Ferritin, which is an iron marker, when it's a standalone elevated marker, that lets me know that there's a lot of inflammation in the body. Okay, it's not just an iron marker. Inflammation and vascular health. I look at your high sensitivity CRP. I look at your homocysteine. Galectin 3, I also look at a lot for my cancer patients. But I do look at it if there is a lot of issues going on. I will look at it as my general wellness as well. I'm looking at the terrain, the inflammation lens. You guys know how much I love having the terrain balanced. Okay, we got to get the body back to balance. Some glucose adjacent markers would include your uric acid, leptin, which also lets us know, like, if there is a fructose load. It tracks the whole pattern, right? I love to look at blood marker patterns. Hormones that block fat loss, TSH, your free T4, your free T3, your reverse T3. Remember, thyroid conversion matters. I saw a lot of this, even in myself, after COVID. If you had COVID, again, I'm not being controversial here. I'm just talking about COVID. But if you had the virus, I saw a lot of conversion issues. So I still, to this day, 5 years later, I still take a thyroid support. It's got a lot of B vitamins in it because I was having some conversion issues with my reverse T3. So you got to make sure that that's balanced as well, or it can cause some insulin issues. I also check your AM cortisol, which is blood, and I check your DHEA. I look at your estradiol, your progesterone, your testosterone, sex hormone binding globulin. I look at that, especially for my PCOS, and I know a lot of you are on here with PCOS. I look at it for PCOS, menopause, and andropause as well for my men. Vitamin D is looked at. Vitamin D is just like a hormone. It's got over 500 functions, so if it's low, you got some insulin issues. And then you also have some body composition metrics that are worth checking out, and I'm happy to refer you to. DEXA scans, waist circumference, waist to height ratio. DEXA is probably one of my most favorite scans out of any of them. I like to look at bone density as well. Remember, I don't wait for diabetes to happen. So when you go to your doctor and you go to your GP and he looks at your markers and he said, hey, John Brown, we need to wait and just watch your fasting glucose because it's starting to get elevated. Literally, they are waiting for you to get type 2 diabetes. So don't wait. Start reversing that now before it becomes a full-blown issue. There are so many things that you can do. And I know that I always talk about it, and it's probably one of the hardest things to get, but your nutrition is key. If you're eating high glycemic foods all the time and you're spiking glucose, it is going to be a constant roller coaster that you're not going to be able to wrap your head around, and it's going to be so frustrating. So it's really important to get with a nutritionist. I am a certified nutritionist. My master's is in nutrition. I am happy to design a meal plan, a wellness plan for you to make sure that you are doing a low glycemic diet, and you don't have to be missing out. Oh my gosh, like my Instagram, I guess everybody knows how much I love recipes because when I go on just a random search, that's all that pops up. But there are so many easy recipes out there of really good foods that you won't feel like you're missing out on anything just because you're not having the dessert or the birthday cake that you've had for 40 something years. Okay, there are so many alternatives. Also, I use risk predictive lipids. All right, I screen for insulin, HOMA IR, and not just your glucose, your A1C. I use ApoB, I use your HDL, and I love HDL because it's your good cholesterol, right? And if you're on a statin, the statin's doing its job by reducing your LDL if you're a cardiac risk, but it's also tanking your HDL. And that's where hormones are made, is in your HDL. That's where your cognitive function. So if you're having some brain fog, I would really rethink the statin. I would talk to your doctor about it. Ask him if red yeast rice is a possibility or something similar to that, because you need that cholesterol. We do not want to have early dementia. We don't want to have brain fog where we're not being our optimal best. So those are things, or maybe you're having leg cramps and things that you don't even realize, but you need your cholesterol. Don't don't go through life thinking that taking a statin is a fix-all. There's a great book out there called The Cholesterol Myth. I'm not sure if you guys have ever read it, but it is awesome and it's definitely worth the read. What does visceral fat panel show? It would show in your HOMO markers, and usually they are just off the charts, either too low or too high, and it just lets me know that your body is not responding to insulin the way that it should. It's not as sensitive as what it needs to be. Again, I look at the liver enzymes, your ferritin, your GGT for metabolic dysfunction, and then I pair it with things like your DEXA scan if you have that. I build nutrition, I build training plans, sleep stress plans. I do it all, okay? Because just like I was talking about today, it takes all pieces of the pie, not just one thing here and one thing there. It's all pieces of the pie. And so I want to talk about some pillars actually to help you, some tips, some protocols that I go over with my patients. Protein forward, fiber rich plates. I post this stuff all the time. My plate is very protein heavy. So 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of body weight should be your goal. If you got kidney issues, then that's another subject, because a high protein diet can be harsh on the kidneys, and it's something that we definitely want to monitor and keep an eye out for. 30 to 50 grams of fiber per day. It could come from beans, lentils, chia, flax seeds, psyllium husk, greens, berries. I do it all, okay? And if you're not going to the bathroom on a regular basis, you're not getting enough fiber in. So there is no reason why you should not be going multiple times a day if you're getting enough fiber in. And then carbs, mostly whole food, post-workout or in the early eating window. I've been playing around, I don't know if you guys are following me on here or not, but I've been playing around with squashes. I have so many food allergies. I don't want to say food allergies, but I have things that can cause me inflammation with my rheumatoid arthritis, and I'm uber strict with myself. And when you've been in so much pain and you never want to go there again, you'll do whatever it takes. And so I am very extreme. If you know me, I'm very extreme. And I've had a hard time keeping on some muscle, keeping on some weight, especially from my travels. And so I've been playing around with some I don't do any grains, but I get my carbs from vegetables. So I've been playing around with carbier vegetables. And I'll tell you, I love squash. I'm not having any issues so far. And I'm about 5 days in. And so pretty much breakfast, lunch, and then mid-afternoon snack, I'm eating squash. And it is definitely a carbier vegetable, but there are so many ways to get your carbs in. And again, you cannot manage what you're not measuring. I track everything. I use a food scale. I'm measuring everything out. Anytime that I'm not measuring my food, that's when my weight kind of just gets all over the board. So measure. You cannot manage if you're not measuring. Measure it. Don't eyeball it. And track it. Like, I use apps. I have my Fitbit, so there's an app for that. But I love the app Lose It. It tracks everything. My water intake. I think it's like $40 a year. No, I think $40 for a lifetime. It's awesome. But I love it. And it tracks my exercise and my food intake. And It's just really easy to use and fast. So that's why I love it. Fats, olive oil, nuts, seeds, avocados. And if you have some histamine issues, swap out the avocados for omega-3 rich foods. Cut liquid sugars, minimize refined grains, watch your alcohol intake. And I'm not just preaching that because I'm alcohol free, even though my life is way better not having alcohol in it. But watch your alcohol intake, especially as we get older. Our bodies do not metabolize it the same, especially women, and that alcohol is feeding estrogen in our breasts. So we got to be really careful. It's a visceral fat fertilizer. So we got to make sure that we're watching the alcohol. Resistant starches, cooked cooled potatoes, rice, green banana flour, all of these improve insulin sensitivity. Meal timing and glycemic pacing. I love intermittent fasting. I do it pretty much every single day. So my cutoff time is 7:30 p.m. and then I eat breakfast around, I don't even really call it breakfast. I eat my first meal around 11 a.m., 10:30 to 11 a.m. So I get between a 15 and 16 hour fast, and that gives me about an 8-hour window, and that's great. An 8 to 10 hour window, it helps really well with fasting insulin, and I just think it's really important to let our guts have a set time to reset, and it helps with digestion, and it's going to help with inflammation. It's just, I think it's really great. Now, women, there is a book, Mindy Pez is her last name, and it's called Fast Like a Girl. My guys, up until the midway point, it's great for you too. Then it gets into menstrual cycles and timing it with that. But I highly recommend reading the book because there is a lot of good information with timing your fast, especially with your periods. If you're perimenopause or postmenopause, there's so much good information. And she has a PDF as well. If you do the Audible that's available, you can email her. She's really friendly, personable, and she'll actually email you the PDF. How do I know that? Because she did it for me. And there's a lot of great information. Let's see, front load protein at breakfast. So if you can get in about 30 to 40 grams of protein at breakfast and 30 to 40 grams of protein in your last meal, that is optimal. All right. And then if you can get a walk of 10 to 20 minutes in after meals, that would be really great too. It really helps with the insulin resistance. Apple cider vinegar as well helps. I do about 4 to 5 tablespoons a day. I love it. It keeps my teeth nice and healthy as well. If you do that prior to, in your water, dilute it always, prior to carb heavier meals, it will help flatten those glucose spikes. And then, of course, let's talk about resistance training. 3 to 4 times a week, big compounds, progressive overload, zone 2 cardio, which is a zone. I always say zone 2 is the talk test pace. So if you can actually talk, you're not working hard enough. So make sure that you're working harder than that. So about 120 to 180 minutes per week. And then throw in some HIIT workouts in there as well. And I love 7,500 to 10,000 steps a day. If you can get those in, that helps with insulin resistance. And sleep. Oh, this is something I really like. And I always say I'm my own guinea pig, and I suck at sleep. My body just doesn't like it. I loved it. I love getting up and being an early morning person. It doesn't matter how late I go to bed. I'm still an early morning person. Been waking up at 3:30, 4 a.m. my entire life. Even the days that I was playing professional tennis in high school, middle school. So my body is just programmed that way. But it's like after 4 or 5 hours, I'm having to I get up to use the bathroom, and it's everything I can to make myself go back to bed because my body's like, let's go. We got things to do. And so I'm really working at this sleep thing. So I'm going to preach it. I may not do it right now, but 7.5 to 9 hours of sleep in a cool, dark room. We do keep it on about 68 in the house at night. and try to stay as consistent as possible. We do try to go to bed. Jason, he goes to bed at like 8:15. I can't do 8:15. I go to bed probably about 10, and then I'm usually up somewhere between 4 and 5 in the morning. So that's I try to stay consistent on that. And the weekends I've been trying to sleep a little bit more. Breath work, meditation. These are times to tame the cortisol. And then try to cut caffeine out 8 to 9 hours before bed if you can. Again, I'm gonna preach it, but I may not do it. I could sleep on coffee. Caffeine, like, it relaxes me. I am a weird bird, but it does. It relaxes me. So, and it also peps me up in the morning. So it just depends. I always say I could drink a pot of coffee and go to sleep, and it's pretty true. And my cortisol levels look great. Helpful supplements. Remember, always consider meds and interactions. Always get with a functional medicine doctor. Check with your GP. Berberine. Again, I do 500 milligrams with 2 to 3 meals a day. Omega-3s are great, especially for your HDL. Magnesium glycinate. I love magnesium glycinate. I just started taking it at night. I've been taking a peptide called tesamorelin. Caused a little bit of fluid retention, and it really helped with that as far as detox. And it definitely helps me sleep. It puts me out. Vitamin D with K2. You definitely want your vitamin D3 with K2 for absorption. Ceylon or Ceylon cinnamon, however you want to pronounce it. I do it in my water with the apple cider vinegar. Love it so much. Chromium, EGCG is great. Soluble fiber, curcumin, all of those are great supplements. And then, of course, your probiotics. I take BPC 157 peptide, so I'm not taking my probiotics anymore. It seems to keep my gut nice and healthy. And then, again, medications, make sure there's no interactions. Talk to your prescriber. But there are things like metformin, your GLP-1s, and then also your SGLT2 inhibitors, which are glucose offloading. There's peptide caveats as well. There's so many things that can help you with insulin resistance. So, again, you cannot manage what you're not measuring, so you need to get your labs done to see exactly where you're falling at. I like to see a fasting glucose in the morning. When you wake up in the 80s, I don't like to even see it in the low 90s. I think that that's just a perfect storm for down the road having an issue. And then your HOMA-IR, ideally, I like it below 1.0 to 1.5. Triglycerides under 100. ApoB, appropriate to risk. Lower is always better on your ApoB. ALT, GGT, trending to low normal. Ferritin normalized as well. And then your waist to height ratio below 0.5. DEXA, on the DEXA scan. And then subjective wins, steadier energy, fewer cravings, deeper sleep, better training recovery. All of these will come if you're doing all the above, okay? And remember, it's a journey. It's not a sprint. Functional medicine, it's not a pill and overnight it's going to change. It is consistency. It is showing up day after day after day and doing the right thing when no one's watching, right? So, get the labs, get your DEXA scan done. I even like to see what the calcium score looks like to make sure that we don't have any calcification in the arteries. I like to see what that looks like. And then plate rule would be 30 to 40 grams of protein each meal, veggies, fiber first, carbs last. 10 to 20 minute walks after meals. Get your 8 to 12,000 steps daily. I do between 7,500 and 10,000 personally because I do the stair climber first thing in the morning fasted, and then I like to get my steps in later. If you're not getting any other cardio in, I would like to see you getting over 10,000 steps a day. 3 lifts a week, 2 zones. I would schedule them just like you have an appointment with work. Don't let anything come in between you and that appointment, because that workout is an investment in your health and longevity to your years and quality of life. And if cutting alcohol out is on your radar, try it for 30 days. There's so many different challenges out there. There's an app called Reframe that I used when I first started cutting back from alcohol. I was just going to take a break, cut back, and that's what it's about, is reframing your mind around alcohol. And then I just love the way that it made me feel so much not having it in my life. I just walked away. And it's been almost 2 years next month that I walked away from it. It's the best decision I ever did. I feel so much better. I love being clear minded. It's very, I feel very stoic being around everybody drinking alcohol, and I'm the only one that's not drinking. I don't know, it makes you feel good about yourself. So, and just remember, you don't need perfection, you need repetition. Visceral fat is a hormonal problem disguised as a willpower problem. Track, adjust, repeat. Okay? And remember, data replaces your drama. And I do have a full insulin resistance panel that I run. So if this is something that you're wanting to do, just contact me, Cindy at drcindyross.com. My website is lifewellnessforever.com. You can always call and make an appointment, 251 635 7477. I only have time for a couple questions. I was sent a ton, and the new patient that I had this morning that I was talking to had a lot of questions, and I was hoping to get to them, but I am running out of time, and I don't want to keep you guys too long. So let's just do 5. So question 1, my A1C is normal. Could I still be insulin resistant? Yes. Remember, you can have a normal A1C with high fasting insulin and a high HOMA-IR marker. That's why I test insulin and often run the CGM or the OGTT with the insulin curve just to see, okay? I see it so much. What's the single most predictive everyday marker? It would be the TG/HDL ratio. It's actually the most shockingly useful marker. Under 2.0 units is a great sign. Over 3.0 suggests insulin resistance. And remember, this is your cholesterol. Question 3. If I can change only one habit this week, you know what I would say? Lift weights 3 times, walk after meals. Muscle is the organ of longevity and glucose, because remember, the heavier you lift, you're building muscle. That muscle is constantly burning. It's constantly burning calories. Even at rest, you're burning more calories. So build more muscle. Lift heavy shit. Okay? Alright, that Dr. Stacy Sims always says that. Lift heavy shit. Question 4. Do I have to go keto? No. Many do well protein forward, high fiber, moderate carbs, especially timed post-workout or earlier in the day. So if you're worried about that, I would get my carbs in post-workout, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then as the day goes on, switch to more protein-heavy and lower carbier vegetables, salads, things like that. Again, best time to eat carbs after resistance training or within your daylight eating window. Pair it with a protein/fiber, and consider a small apple cider vinegar preload. Remember, I don't like naked carbs, okay? So that means that you need to eat your carbs with a protein and a fat. Include the fiber as well, but don't eat naked carbs. One more question. Is fruit bad for insulin resistance? Whole fruit in reasonable portions is fine for most. I would cut out any fruit juices. I would cut out dried fruits. They are all very high glycemic, and it will spike your glucose. So just because it's fruit does not mean that it's great for your blood sugar. Lois asks, would a treadmill be okay for the walking and steps? Absolutely. I would make sure that you have a pedometer on and you're tracking your steps. They're so cheap too. You can get like if you don't have like something like the Fitbit or an Apple Watch to track, I would definitely get the pedometers. I think they're like $8 or $9 on Amazon. So definitely get a pedometer. And it's so good to see you as well. Thanks for joining in. I appreciate you guys always. And again, reach out to me, 251-635-7477. Cindy at drcindyross.com. lifewellnessforever.com is my website. And if you have any questions, feel free to email them to me or comment below once this is posted. I appreciate you all. And if you have any video topics you want me to talk about in the future, feel free to send it my way. All right. Have a great night. Have a good weekend. Talk to you guys soon.